The Nebraska Cornhuskers men's basketball team has an opportunity on Friday to do something that they have never done before. Advance in the tournament. And Gary, I respect this A&M team. They have some really talented players, especially at the guard position. But I think that this is going to be one of those games that comes down to living and dying by the three. And the Huskers' not so secret weapon, Keisei Tominaga, I think is going to have a big say over the outcome of this game. We were talking about it earlier, and he's shooting around 37% from three, but that's on high volume, and they're difficult shots. I just think it's worth pointing out the fact that it's not easy shots. These are hand in the face, no follow through, fading away after a step back. And Bryce Williams might even be a better shooter than him. I know Nebraska struggles sometimes to guard the three, but statistically A&M is a lot worse.
It's kind of a tale of two teams with A&M, it seems like. It seems like over the last month, both teams got a lot hotter. But A&M, in those two categories, you hear that brought up a lot. Those two categories specifically over the last month or so, they've drastically improved. That was a big factor in them beating Kentucky in their tournament. Kentucky refusing to play defense was a bigger factor, I believe. But I would add in, when you said, Tominaga and the team shooting threes being kind of the pivotal point on whether or not Nebraska comes out with the win, I would add in defense. Like, if they can stay first half against Illinois type defense as opposed to second half against Illinois, I think Nebraska has a really good chance of winning. A&M is kind of similar. They like to collapse when guys are driving. Nebraska likes to run those higher kind of screens when they're swinging the ball around doing their thing and then get it down. Nebraska's going to be bigger. But another big thing that I don't think I've heard enough, or at least, trying to kind of research this A&M squad, is how good they rebound, especially on the offensive end. They get a lot of second and third chance possessions, but just by out hustling, like you and I talked before, not that big, but yet they always get in position. They got guys hustling and grinding and crashing the board and, like I say, crashing the lane and whoever's driving on the offensive side of the ball. So that's going to be a little bit different from some of the styles that Nebraska played going down the stretch. But Nebraska has multiple guys that can shoot the threes. It's just going to be a matter of, if Keisei were to get hot, I think they're going to be in trouble. I don't think they're built to come from behind or to, get into a run and gun type game. But again, if Nebraska's not hitting their threes, it's essentially going to be a turnover every time they miss the ball because the way these guys rebound, unless, like Rank and Alec and, some of the bigs can do a better job of boxing out than some of these other teams have done. And everybody's kind of all hands on deck deciding they're going to scrap for the ball, and hustle for it. But to me, the whole thing with Tominaga is there's a lot of hype around him, obviously, and that shot, that release, everybody compares to Curry and whatnot. This is it for him, man. So it's almost like he needs to kind of have a bit, and I hate the comparisons because I feel like they're so far off, but it's along the lines that run Davison had where Curry just went off. Like, everybody knew he was going pro. He was a great shooter, all that, but I felt like his stock just skyrocketed. And I feel like Tominaga needs that just to get a team, to get picked up, whether it's sometime in the second round or do whatever else, because we all love him. I'm not taking this opportunity to shit on him by any means, but I mean, aside of that jumper, not good enough of a ball handler in my opinion. I feel like he has a lot of trouble just on his own dribbling. Undersized, good slasher, but what's that going to be at the next level? And I'm not saying that just if they get hot, all of a sudden he's going to be a hot commodity come draft time, but I'm saying this, I feel like he's one of those pivotal on the bubble types that's going to need a big showing in the tournament to more solidify. He's going to get picked up by somebody and make a squad for however long, or a two-way type deal, or a G League type situation or something like that. But I mean, as far as getting past that hump, I think he has a great opportunity because the hype's there. People are going to be watching. People are going to see that. Nebraska's going to show out like they always do. And if they can lean on him, or he can kind of put the team on his back and carry him and shock the world if they do get past A&M and do something against Houston or something, I think that's more. That obviously doesn't have a lot to do with what we're talking about, the breakdown of the game. But I think that's a personal goal or mindset he should have going in, is to live up to the hype, maybe try to exceed it just for him going forward. If he does that, and both things are going to be accomplished. His stock's going to rise. Nebraska's going to go about as far as his shooting will take him, because I think their defense is going to be fine, man. I think the effort they put in on defense is better than most, I don't really say most, but a good portion of teams. We watch so many games where teams don't even try to play defense. And like it's an emphasis in Hoiberg's system, obviously, and the way they try to trap and close off the quick passes and things like that. Obviously, teams can take advantage of it, and you hit the nail on the head, man. They've got the guards to essentially use that trap and that style of defense against you. So, those two things, man, I feel like if Nebraska can play the defense that they're capable of playing consistently, whether it's team or Tominaga can get hot from the threes, I think Nebraska will be fine, and we'll be talking about what if they could do something to Houston. But I think those two things have to go together because, like I said, if they're missing threes, unless I'm shocked and something crazy else happens, I think they're going to out rebound Nebraska. They're going to basically, every missed three is going to essentially be a turnover. They're going to have those extra possessions. And if guys aren't rotating quick enough, like on backsides and things like that, when they do that trap, they've got the guards that's going to take advantage of it. And it could get Nebraska in a lot of trouble to where they have to start taking threes or trying to press, do things. But I think it's a great matchup because of how both teams kind of got hot. Nebraska played out of their mind most of the year, especially when you compare this year from last year. But when you look at down the stretch, kind of how they put it together with the 3-point shooting and defense, both on a pretty consistent basis. And then you look at A&M improving on what they weren't great on, really doing well what they do, which is like rebounding and getting to the rim and collapsing on teams that are trying to get to the rim. I think it's going to be a really good matchup, man. I think it'll be a close game. And it's just a hunch, but I mean, I'm just not really based off much other than like the pressure that the team has on them. Like you open this up with saying they're the only Power 5 school that's never won a tournament game, right? So they know that. They understand the improvement from last year to this year. Guys are leaving, all that stuff. I think there'll be a lot of pressure. I'd love for them to go lights out shooting threes. I think that's going to be kind of a up and down streakiness type of a deal. So I think they have to really have some smart possessions. But the most important thing is keeping those guys out of the lane, especially those two guards and Boots and Wade.
One thing I noticed from A&M is they're just really good at moving and sharing the ball in transition. Their fast break play is beautiful, very unselfish and quick decision-making wise. They've got some good players outside of Radford and Taylor. Those guys are going to be a problem themselves, but you can't allow Solomon Washington to get it going either. Like, he's got a great mid-range. He's good at getting to the rim. I hope that our size will prevent the getting to the rim, and I hope that the Huskers will utilize the size advantage because A&M is on the small side. Like, the biggest guy they're probably going to be playing is 6'8". I want to see Mast go off, but then also get more touches in the second half and not get frozen out of the offense. And if his threes aren't hitting the way they were, that's understandable because he was absolutely on fire. Maybe you see what he can do in the paint, or you see what Alec can do in the paint against these smaller players, and then you're not giving up a lot of fast breaks off of long misses.
If they can get in some man-to-man situations, for sure, you'd like to see the size take advantage. The problem is A&M really collapses on whoever has the ball down low or guys that are trying to get to the rim. So that, to your point, like you're saying, especially coming off of some of those higher screens, that's where you're really hoping Mass does have it going from the 3-point line, because that's more than likely going to be available, right? Like somebody drives, cuts, or gets it going, or even if you do throw it down to like an Alec or something like that. As the defense collapse, I would think Hoiberg's got that kind of figured out in the game plan, that if the shot's there, take it, dunk, whatever. You got a little bit of a lane to the rim, hurry up and go. But outside of that, look to who the open guy is outside, and hopefully you've got more than just one guy going off. But I mean, let's be honest, man. As Nebraska fans, we'd love nothing more than to watch that dude go 6 of 10 or something from the 3-point line. You know what I mean? And like open it up. Like I said, if Nebraska can do what they typically do in games, they just sometimes don't do it long enough. But they get some of them flurries going. If they get out to a 15, 17, 20, whatever point lead, like they have on, like they did with Illinois, like they did with Indiana, it's going to be a lot harder for A&M to come back from that than it was most of these Big Ten schools they played, because of the 3-point situation. They're going to have a harder time unless, obviously it's basketball, man. Anything can happen. Somebody gets hot, somebody goes cold. But I mean, statistically looking at it, even as well as they've been shooting in the last month or so, it's going to be really tough for them to consistently go shot for shot with Nebraska.
Unless they're still just shooting well like they have been lately, which is possible. The other thing I think is a big key is we cannot have Juwan Gary get into foul trouble again and miss the end of the game, because that was crucial.
That hurt for sure. And then you got the other thing that I think is a big factor that I think would have had a lot more impact on the Illinois game is Wilcher. When him being out last game, him being back, I think that'll help him a lot just from a depth perception, but also he can shoot it as well. So like even when guys are rotating out and you're starting to get bench players in, still having weapons that can shoot and decent sized bodies, long on defense, and kind of have that motor, I think that'll be a huge upgrade for Nebraska from the last game.
Tell us what you guys think in the comments. We can't wait to see you on Friday for the live stream. Nebraska versus the newly led by Trev Alberts Texas A&M Aggies. Until then, go Big Red.